What if the rain falling from the sky could burn your skin? What if the air you breathe inside your own home carried invisible toxins that could damage your lungs for years? What if the weather itself became a weapon of war? These are not questions from a science fiction novel. These are the urgent realities facing millions of people in Tehran, Iran right now. Following a series of devastating airstrikes on oil depots surrounding the Iranian capital, the sky has turned black. Smoke blankets the city. And now, Iranian authorities are issuing a warning that has sent shockwaves through the global community. The rain falling over Tehran may be toxic. They call it acid rain. They say it contains chemical compounds from burning oil that could cause severe burns, respiratory failure, and long-term environmental damage. This is not speculation. This is not fear-mongering. This is a developing humanitarian and ecological crisis stemming from active military conflict. Welcome to Power Clash Report. Today we are breaking down one of the most alarming developments in the ongoing escalation between Iran and Israel. We are moving beyond the headlines of missile counts and military targets to look at the human and environmental cost of modern warfare. We will examine the official warnings issued by Iran's environmental agency and the Red Crescent. We will analyze the science behind how burning oil creates toxic precipitation. We will explore the strategic reasoning behind targeting energy infrastructure. And we will answer the critical question: what does this mean for civilians, for the region, and for the global precedent of environmental warfare? Stay with me until the end, because understanding this story is not just about geopolitics. It is about the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the invisible consequences of conflict that linger long after the fires are extinguished. Let us begin with the facts as they are currently known based on official statements and verified reports. On the night of March 7, 2026, multiple explosions rocked the outskirts of Tehran and the neighboring Alborz province. The Israel Defense Forces subsequently confirmed that they conducted targeted airstrikes on several oil storage facilities and petroleum transfer centers. According to Israeli military statements, these facilities were not merely commercial enterprises. They were designated as dual-use infrastructure, meaning they were allegedly used to store and distribute fuel for Iranian military operations, including the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The strikes ignited massive fires at key depots, including the Shahran oil depot in northern Tehran. Satellite imagery captured by commercial providers shows intense thermal anomalies consistent with large-scale hydrocarbon fires. Plumes of black smoke rose thousands of feet into the atmosphere, visible from space. By the morning of March 8th, the consequences became visible on the ground. Residents across Tehran reported waking to a skyline shrouded in thick, acrid smoke. The smell of burning fuel was pervasive, penetrating even closed windows. But the most disturbing development came later in the day when light rain began to fall. Instead of clearing the air, the rain seemed to worsen the situation. Reports began circulating of oily residue on cars, windows, and streets. In response to growing public concern, two major Iranian authorities issued urgent public health advisories. First, Iran's Department of Environment advised residents of Tehran and surrounding areas to stay indoors, limit all outdoor activity, and avoid strenuous exercise. They cited significantly worsened air quality indices due to toxic pollutants released by the burning oil. Second, and more specifically, the Iranian Red Crescent Society issued a stark warning regarding the rainfall itself. They stated that the rain in affected areas could be highly dangerous and acidic. They explained that the explosions at the fuel tanks released significant quantities of toxic hydrocarbon compounds, sulfur, and nitrogen oxides into the atmosphere. When these compounds mix with moisture in the clouds, they form acidic precipitation. The Red Crescent cautioned that direct exposure to this rain could cause chemical burns to exposed skin and severe damage to the lungs if inhaled. They also issued a specific technical advisory. People should not turn on air conditioners or cooling systems immediately after rainfall. The reasoning is that if acidic droplets settle on hot external units, they could evaporate and release concentrated toxins into the indoor air supply. These are not rumors spread on social media. These are official public health advisories from recognized Iranian institutions responsible for emergency response and environmental protection. Whether one agrees with the politics of the conflict or not, the humanitarian implication is clear. Civilians are being exposed to hazardous materials as a direct result of military strikes on industrial infrastructure. To understand why authorities are so concerned, we need to look at the science. What exactly makes rain toxic after an oil depot fire? When crude oil or refined petroleum products burn, they do not just produce smoke. They release a complex cocktail of hazardous chemicals into the atmosphere. Three categories of pollutants are particularly concerning in this scenario. First, sulfur compounds. Most crude oil contains sulfur as a natural impurity. When burned, sulfur converts to sulfur dioxide and other sulfur oxides. In the atmosphere, these compounds react with water vapor, oxygen, and other chemicals to form sulfuric acid. This is a primary component of acid rain. Second, nitrogen oxides. High-temperature combustion, like that in a massive oil fire, causes nitrogen and oxygen in the air to combine, forming nitrogen oxides. These also react with atmospheric moisture to produce nitric acid. Third, unburned hydrocarbons and particulates. Oil fires release complex hydrocarbons, including polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, benzene, toluene, and fine particulate matter. Many of these are known carcinogens or severe respiratory irritants. When they mix with rain droplets, they can deposit directly onto skin, into eyes, or be inhaled deep into the lungs. The result is precipitation that is not just acidic, but chemically contaminated. This is different from typical acid rain caused by industrial pollution over the decades. This is acute, concentrated, and localized, but no less dangerous for those exposed. Environmental scientists note that the health risks depend on several factors: the concentration of toxins, duration of exposure, wind patterns, and individual health conditions. Children, the elderly, and people with pre-existing respiratory conditions like asthma are at the highest risk. The Iranian Red Crescent's specific warnings about skin burns, lung damage, and avoiding air conditioner use align with established public health guidance for chemical exposure incidents. They are not exaggerating. They are applying standard emergency protocols to an unprecedented situation. The burning of millions of liters of fuel in a densely populated area creates a toxic cloud that does not respect borders or boundaries. It settles on homes, schools, and hospitals. Now, let us examine the strategic calculation behind targeting oil infrastructure. Why strike fuel depots in the heart of a capital city? From a military perspective, energy infrastructure is a critical node in modern warfare. Fuel powers tanks, trucks, aircraft, and generators. Disrupting fuel supply chains can degrade an adversary's military capability over time. By targeting depots near Tehran, the intent may be to signal that no infrastructure is safe, even deep within Iranian territory. It is a message of reach and precision. However, targeting industrial energy facilities in proximity to civilian populations carries immense risk. The collateral damage is not just the immediate blast effects. It is the secondary environmental catastrophe that follows. This raises profound questions about the laws of armed conflict. International humanitarian law requires parties to a conflict to distinguish between military objectives and civilian objects. It also prohibits attacks that may be expected to cause widespread, long-term, and severe damage to the natural environment. When oil depots burn near cities, the environmental damage is almost guaranteed. The question becomes, was this risk weighed against the military advantage? And who bears the responsibility for the long-term health consequences? This incident also recalls historical precedents that should serve as warnings. During the Gulf War in 1991, retreating Iraqi forces set fire to over 600 Kuwaiti oil wells. The resulting smoke plumes blocked out the sun for months. Temperatures dropped in the region. Respiratory illnesses spiked among civilians and soldiers. Soot fell as far away as the Himalayas. It took years to cap the wells and clean up the environmental mess. The cost was measured not just in dollars, but in human health. More recently, in the conflict in Ukraine, strikes on energy infrastructure have caused widespread blackouts and heating crises during winter. But the Tehran situation introduces a new element: chemical contamination of precipitation. This is a different kind of threat. It is invisible. It lingers in the soil. It enters the water table. The cleanup of an oil fire is difficult. The cleanup of toxic soil and water is exponentially harder. We are potentially looking at a public health crisis that could last for years, affecting generations of residents in the Tehran metropolitan area. Let us talk about the human dimension. In any conflict, it is easy to focus on maps, missile ranges, and political statements. But behind every statistic are people. In Tehran, millions of people are now confined to their homes. Schools may need to close. Outdoor work halts. People with chronic illnesses face heightened danger. There is also the psychological toll. Living under the threat of toxic rain creates a sense of vulnerability that goes beyond the fear of explosions. It is the fear that the environment itself has turned hostile. Parents worry about their children playing outside. Workers worry about their commute. Families worry about their water supply. This is the hidden cost of warfare that rarely makes it into strategic briefings. The Iranian Red Crescent is mobilizing teams to distribute masks and provide medical guidance, but the scale of the potential exposure is massive. If the rain continues, if the fires burn for days, the cumulative exposure could lead to a surge in hospital admissions for respiratory distress and chemical burns. Now, let us consider the global implications. This is not just an Iranian problem, it is a global precedent. If targeting oil infrastructure near major cities becomes a standard tactic in modern conflict, the environmental risks escalate worldwide. Many major cities have energy infrastructure nearby. The potential for similar toxic events exists in multiple conflict zones. Furthermore, the economic impact cannot be ignored. Oil markets react instantly to supply disruptions and regional instability. Even if the targeted depots were for domestic consumption, the perception of risk in the Middle East drives prices up. Brent crude and WTI prices could surge. This affects everything from gasoline prices at the pump to the cost of shipping goods worldwide. Countries that import oil, including India, China, and many European nations, face higher energy bills. Inflation, which many economies were finally bringing under control, could reignite. This is how a single strike on a depot in Tehran can impact your wallet, your job, and your financial security thousands of miles away. Energy security is national security, and environmental security is human security. There is also the issue of the information war. In the hours after the strikes and the subsequent warnings, social media was flooded with videos, claims, and counterclaims. Some posts showed dramatic images of black rain. Others debunked them as old footage or unrelated industrial accidents. Official statements from Iran, Israel, and international observers offered varying narratives. This is not accidental. In modern conflict, controlling the narrative is as important as controlling the battlefield. Each side seeks to shape perception, influence allies, and deter adversaries. Iran may emphasize the humanitarian cost to garner international sympathy and condemnation of the strikes. Israel may emphasize the military necessity to justify the actions. As consumers of information, our responsibility is to seek verification, consult credible sources, and resist the urge to share unconfirmed reports. Power Clash Report is committed to this principle. We rely on official health advisories, satellite data, and scientific analysis rather than unverified social media clips. We will update this analysis as verified information becomes available. Let us now examine the regional implications. Iran's environmental crisis does not occur in a vacuum. It is part of a broader pattern of escalation involving multiple actors. Hezbollah in Lebanon has exchanged fire with Israel. Iranian-backed groups in Syria and Iraq have targeted United States forces. The Houthis in Yemen have disrupted shipping in the Red Sea. Each of these flashpoints connects to the others. A strike in Tehran could trigger retaliation in Beirut. An attack on energy infrastructure could prompt attacks on energy infrastructure elsewhere. This interconnectedness means that localized conflicts can rapidly expand. Diplomats and military planners are working to contain the escalation, but the margin for error is shrinking. One miscalculation, one misinterpreted signal could push the region toward wider war. The environmental damage in Tehran serves as a grim reminder of what wider war could look like. It is not just bombs falling. It is cities becoming uninhabitable. It is ecosystems collapsing. It is a future we must work to prevent. What about the role of international organizations? Where is the United Nations? Where are the environmental protection agencies? In times of conflict, international law often struggles to enforce compliance. The NMOD Convention prohibits the hostile use of environmental modification techniques, but it does not fully cover collateral environmental damage from conventional strikes. There is a gap in international law regarding the protection of the environment during armed conflict. This incident in Tehran highlights that gap. It may prompt renewed calls for stronger legal frameworks to protect civilian infrastructure and the natural environment from the ravages of war. But laws are only as strong as the will to enforce them. Until then, civilians bear the brunt of the risk. They are the ones who must stay indoors. They are the ones who must worry about the rain. They are the ones who will live with the consequences long after the headlines fade. So what can you do right now? First, stay informed through credible sources. Follow official statements from governments and international organizations. Be skeptical of sensational claims on social media. Second, understand the broader context. This is not an isolated event. It is part of a shifting landscape of warfare where infrastructure and environment are increasingly targeted. Third, engage constructively. Share verified information. Support humanitarian efforts for those affected by conflict. Advocate for a peaceful resolution through your elected representatives. At Power Clash Report, we believe that knowledge is power. Understanding geopolitical events helps us make better decisions, protect our families, and contribute to a more stable world. We are committed to providing analysis that is thorough, balanced, and grounded in facts. We will continue to monitor this developing situation and bring you updates as verified information emerges. Before we conclude, let us recap the key points. Israeli airstrikes targeted oil depots near Tehran, igniting massive fires. Iranian authorities, including the Environmental Agency and Red Crescent, have warned residents of toxic smoke and potentially acidic, chemically contaminated rain. The science confirms that burning oil releases sulfur, nitrogen, and hydrocarbons that can create hazardous precipitation. The health risks include chemical burns, respiratory damage, and long-term environmental contamination. This incident raises serious questions about international humanitarian law and the targeting of dual-use infrastructure near civilian populations. The economic and regional implications are substantial, affecting global oil markets and stability. Verification of long-term damage remains ongoing, highlighting the challenge of assessing environmental impact in active conflict zones. The path forward requires clarity, restraint, and diplomacy. Military actions may achieve short-term objectives, but lasting security comes from dialogue, mutual recognition of interests, and respect for international norms. As citizens of an interconnected world, we have both the right and the responsibility to demand that our leaders pursue peace with the same determination they apply to war. We must remember that the environment does not take sides. The rain does not distinguish between soldier and civilian. The air we breathe belongs to all of us. Protecting it should be a priority for humanity, not a casualty of conflict. If this analysis provided value, please like this video, subscribe to Power Clash Report, and share it with someone who needs to understand these developments. Turn on notifications so you do not miss our updates as this story evolves. In the description below, you will find links to credible sources, official statements, and further reading on this topic. We are committed to bringing you signal in a world of noise. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay safe. And remember, in a world of increasing uncertainty, clarity is the most valuable asset we have.